So it's Stu again. So this is the last video. This is going to be on the SRNE SR IBC12 3 kilowatt pure sine wave inverter. Now that is essentially that bad boy there. So it's available from Sky Energy. It's true 3 kilowatt. It outputs on surge higher than that. At the moment I've only had it up to 2,900 watts, and that's been running my air fryer, my kettle, and it's been running my induction hob, because this van is completely gasless. If you have a look at the video on the overview of the van, you'll see about that. It's 476 quid. So it is a touch more expensive than some of the other 3,000 watt inverters, but it's not going to blow up. It's not going to burn out, touch wood, and it's got good guarantee. And as I say, it's got its own built-in RCB, as well as some other functionality. So like all of the SRNE RV ecosystems, you can plug it by Ethernet cable to your brain and your screen, and I can remotely turn it on and off. As I say, it is true 3,000 kilowatts, but you will only get 3,000 kilowatts of energy if you are using a battery with a max output in it of 250 amps or more. So I had a 280 amp hour, 304 amp hour core battery from them, which had a max output of 200 amps, and therefore I couldn't get 3,000 watts on that, because it would sort of alarm out. So I very good. John Hall was brilliant. Just swapped my 304 one back, paid the little extra, and now I've got this beast, and this kicks out 250 amp hour maximum draw, and yeah, I've had it up to 2,900, and it didn't show any signs of slowing. So as I like all this stuff, it works with their whole ecosystem. The nice pros on this one is that you can remotely turn it on and off. It's got an auto bypass, so you've got an RCB in there, which in effect I'm not really using because I've got consumer units, but it is there if you wanted to wire into it. And essentially I've got power in from my shore power, and then I've got power out to the consumer unit, which then feeds the rest of my van sockets, amongst other things. So it's pretty good. I say it's got auto bypass. It's got a plug socket in the top, which I don't use, but it's got auto bypass. So if it detects that I am plugged into the mains, it'll just bypass that and won't draw any current from the battery. So if you're plugged into shore power, so you can have one set of sockets. So you put your shore power into the inverter, and then all of your sockets off the inverter, and it will either draw from your battery, or if you're plugged into shore power, it'll automatically bypass and do that. So again, good bit of kit. Some of the inverters have got that, some haven't. I've had a couple of Victron multiplexes, and I've fitted those, and they're very good. Very expensive though, and you do get all the other stuff. But comparing it to some of the other inverters I've got, like the Renology one in a previous van that was horrendously unreliable, couldn't run much off it. It said it was 3,000 watts, but it really wasn't, and got really, really hot. And again, this one I've had right up there, and I've run it for quite a while, and I've had no problems with it, other than one thing, and that is make sure that your crimps and your cabling are decent. And I say the only real fault I had with it, and whether it was the cabling I'd done or it was the battery, is that it kept on alarming out when I got to 1,800 watts. So John Hall at Sky Energy was amazing. He sent me the bigger battery to solve that. But what he also did is he crimped me some cables in 95mm squared for it. And that was brilliant. So it runs through my Lynx distributor, as you'd expect on a 450 amp mega fuse. But yeah, John was brilliant. No mucking about. And he sent me some new cables to work with this battery, and touch wood, I've not had any problems since. So installing it is really easy. And essentially screw it to where you want to screw it, make sure there's a vent. What you can't see under there is there's a vent to the outside of my van, a bit like a gas vent, so it can draw in fresh air to cool it. So yeah, At the moment, the positive goes into my Lynx distributor. I think it's a 450 amp hour, 450 sorry amp fuse there, and then I've got my isolator, and then my positive running through another fuse, 450 there, to my battery. So probably a bit overkill, but I wanted to make sure I had a fuse before the isolator to protect that bit of cable before it went into that one. But they did a really lovely job of crimping these. They're really neat. And again, I presented no problem since. And then the negative, again, pretty simple. The negative again runs around into the negative of the Lynx distributor, which obviously then runs the shunt, which runs to the battery. But in essence, you want two dirty, great cables. Now, this inverter says use 75mm squared cables. In the manual from China, don't. 95mm square cables, and you will have no voltage drop over 1.5 meters of total cabling, and you won't get any issues with it reading the voltage. The original 75mm square cables affected the voltage, and it was reading a little bit less. So yeah, don't listen to the manual on that one. 95mm squared for a 3000 watt inverter is what you should be using, and make sure you've got the right fusing. But yeah, do it, crimp it up nice and tight. And essentially, to start with, you can just use the output into a consumer unit to your sockets. If you want to put the bypass in, then wire the wires from your bypass, and that bypass input comes from my other consumer unit over there, which is my shore power, because I've got sockets that will only work on shore power, and then a load of sockets that will work on both, and there's a really good reason for that. This one doesn't run off the inverter because it's to charge my battery, and I only want it to work off of shore power. And my bobble heating system over this side only works when it's plugged into shore power. So that's why I've got two consumer units. But yeah, plug it in, and then you can go to the app, and like everything else, add plus, find the inverter. Now it's not switched on. So on top of the inverter, you've got a rocker switch, which can turn it on, off, or eco. So because I've got mine on that extra little plug there, across to my main switching unit, it's remotely activated. So it's set permanently to on, and until I turn it on remotely, it won't turn on. So I come over to my screen or from the app, and I'm just going to turn my inverter on. So you'll see that a load of lights will light up. There we go. It does a self-check. And it goes green. So for the moment it's green, so that's saying that my inverter is on. So my inverter is on, and then I can go to my app, click plus, and then I can click on the inverter to go into the settings. And you can use this as standalone, you don't have to use it with the whole ecosystem. So there it is. You can see in real time then that I've got measuring 14.3 directly off of my battery, and it gives me my AC in and AC out. So at the moment I've got no AC in, because I have got the fuse off on my shore power, just to show you. I can look at the history of usage, which shouldn't be very much. I had it on the other day very briefly. The basic info where I can rename it and check the firmware is up to date, which I will, already on the latest version. And I say it gives you the device temperature, but at the moment it's not really in use. So there's 229 volts because it is in on mode, so it maintains it because it's micro switching. So if you're on shore power and your shore power is rigged through your inverter on bypass, it acts like an APC, I think it is, where you don't lose it. So it literally won't turn your telly off. It's that quick. It won't turn my telly off, and it won't turn my computer off. It auto switches so quickly. So yes, it's using some of my power at the moment, but it's not using a great deal. It's actually feeding, by the looks of it, off of my solar panels at the moment. In terms of settings, then you've got the inverter itself, so you need to select the right output voltage, and you need to select that it's in on mode, which is what I've got it on there. I can change the rocker switch to eco, and I can change that switch to eco, and it will start in eco mode, but it's either going to be on or off for me. and then the frequency is set. So again, if you check to 230, set to 50, and that's perfect. Then tell it what thing. So in terms of the charger and battery, you don't need to tell it what battery you've got. So again, it knows what battery you've got because it's connected to it, and I haven't had to change those voltages. In terms of the AC input, the maximum input is 16 amps from my consumer unit. In terms of output, priority is given to mains electric. So if you want it always to work off the inverter, then set it to that. But what I want is when it detects it's plugged into shore power, I want it to switch to shore power. And the output, when it switches over, it will put 13.2 volts for switching. And in terms of other settings, there's a buzzer switch that you can do if you want the alarms to work. So again, not really a lot to tweak on those settings. And as I say, use the right cables and beef everything up, and you won't have any problems. The other 3 dots is data calibration. You can do this for some of the other units as well, and what you can actually do is calibrate the voltage. So what I can do is use a multimeter, and I can calibrate the inverter power and stuff like that. I can use a multimeter, and then I can actually input that value into that box there, click start, and it will test and calibrate the device. But again, I must admit, I've not found it to read anything different, so I'm quite happy with that. So then in terms of the bypass, so at the moment you've got a green light on up there. So if I switch on my other consumer unit, my other consumer unit will come on now, so the van should detect that it has got shore power, and it will switch into standby. So the orange light comes on, that is now in bypass. So the inverter shuts down, and then essentially it's now just using the switching as a bypass. And my whole van will now work on 240 volts. So both my hardwired sockets for things and all my inverter sockets will now work, but the inverter is not having to do any effort. If I go into the app, you can now see that I've got AC in on the left hand side there, and you can see the line goes straight across, and therefore it's not touching my inverter. Again, if I switch off my shore power, then you should see that update, and there you go, switches back to my inverter, and it does it so quickly that genuinely it doesn't make any odds to like power devices. It doesn't switch them off, it's that quick. So again, yeah, not really a lot to tell on that. It's a really good quality device if you use the right cables. So make sure these crimps are amazing. Make sure the case. And if in doubt, then when you buy it from John and Sky Energy, ask them to make you a set of cables and pay the few quid for a decent set, and you'll have no problems. All the other bits are available from them as well. But it's really good, it's solid, and it's certainly more reliable than everything I've had except Victron. I've got no reason to say it's any better or worse than Victron, but the reality is the Victron ones are really expensive. So for 3,000 watt inverter standalone, it's really expensive. The other version of this device as well is you can get a charging one. So you can get a 3,000 watt inverter charger, and that allows you to charge your battery from directly. So rather than it going across and being charged through my 3-in-1, it will charge directly from it, and that's about another 50 quid. So if you are just looking for an inverter and a mains charger, you could get the all-in-one device and control it by the app. I've got the 3-in-1, so I didn't need that. And if you've watched the video on that, you'll know what I mean. But again, it's another good bit of kit. Solid, more expensive than Renology and stuff like that, but better warranty, far more help from Sky Energy, and it actually produces the wattage that you need. And as I say, I've got an induction hob, double induction hob up there, and an air fryer, which it runs quite happily. And my kettle, which it runs quite happily. Won't run the air fryer and the hob fully on, but it will run one ring on the hob, it will run the air fryer, and it will boil the kettle, and still using it. My battery will only last a certain amount of time, but on a day like today where the sun's out, it hardly touches it because I'm getting so much solar energy in. So it's a great bit of kit. As I say, great app, and the whole thing, again, if you're using the screen and the brain and everything, it makes for a really good system. Just a shame they don't make anything to replace that, albeit for 120 quid. Why would you want anything other than that? And you can get that from the guys at Sky Energy as well. Any questions, put them in the comments. If not, ring John and that at Sky Energy and buy one. As I say, good system. So there you go.